2022. Can I just remind members to make sure that their mobile phones are turned to silent, and just to advise that this meeting will be recorded. We move then to item 1, which is obviously the welcome and chair's announcements. I don't have any specific announcements for today, but do certainly welcome you all to this committee meeting. On to item 2, which is the declarations of interest. Are there any members who have any items they need to declare an interest in on today's agenda? Okay, if any of your electronic hands are not working, obviously just call out and I'll come to you. If not, we'll move on then to item 3. So we have 3 sets of minutes for approval today, which are from the 25th of January, the 15th of March, and the 26th of July 2022. These have been circulated for people to read and digest. I've not had any comments on the accuracy of the minutes, so I'm happy to move all 3 sets as a true record. Could I ask for a seconder, please? Yep. Okay.
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much. So again, all happy to agree? Yep. Thank you very much. Those are accepted. So thank you very much. We'll move on to item 4, which is the forward work programme. These are on your agenda items, pages 23 to 28. Just one thing to draw your attention to within the forward work programme is obviously the change in the date for the December meeting, which will need to be rescheduled. Other than that, I've got nothing really to add to the paper there. Again, it's for noting only, but I'll take any comments anybody has on that item. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you very much. I can't see anybody's faces. Are you all on non-camera, or is it my computer?
Yeah, I think it might be your internet connection, David. If perhaps you want to turn off video and turn it back on, that sometimes works.
Okay, I'll do that later. I'll go out of the meeting and come back in after I said what I wanted to say, really. On the forward work programme, all I wanted to highlight was the actual fees for studies that we are doing and are expected to do. I know in the past, we're doing the regional transport plan, and I believe the Welsh Government were footing the bill for that. But in the future, any work that we do for that, will they be picking up the tab for it? And also the strategic development plan that we're expected to go into now. Will they be picking up the tab for that? If not, can we write to Welsh Government, or can the 4 CJCs write to Welsh Government and have a united voice on it? Because obviously we need finance to go forward. And in this day and age, it's a bit difficult to foot all the bills as a local authority. Yeah. So that's my question, really.
Yeah, thank you, David. I think in terms of the transport one, we've definitely written, and we've had a response from the Deputy Minister saying that they're considering that. So we've done that one. I think the principle that we'd previously discussed with Welsh Government was obviously these new structures should not come as a burden, additional financial burden to local governments. So we have had some funding, obviously, for the initial phases of the CJCs, and we will continue to press Welsh Government for additional funding. I don't know whether colleagues want to add anything to that in terms of the finances, but that was my understanding of where we were. But certainly the principle is understood there, David.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to advise, I understand that session, which was it might be rearranged now on the date in December. That will include an assessment of what the likely cost of the strategic development plan are. And one of the recommendations would be, no doubt, then to write to Welsh Government to seek funding to cover those costs. But until you've been presented with the costs at that December session, we'd be unclear what the ask is. So I'll make sure with officers that that's included in the presentation that comes to you in December.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. Tegrin, over to you next.
Yeah, thank you. It was just a request, possibly at the next meeting. We just, there's a bit of an outstanding issue which we raise every meeting about where national parks fit in. It might be good to put that down next time and set that as a target for us to present something or to sort it out, really. So just to put it on the December agenda, then hopefully we move on from there.
Yes, very happy to do that, Tegra. And I think just to recap, we obviously wrote to the Finance Minister with regard to the position on national parks. I think the Minister's view was that she supported the principle that there should be an agreement if at all possible, but I think she's looking for the 4 CJCs to sort that out rather than imposing anything, was what I got from the letter, but I'm sure others will advise me if I've got that wrong. But certainly, yes, we can agenda that. Karen, come to you next.
Sorry, Rob, I just wanted to add to the point you made on the transport letter that we sent to the Minister and the response we had back. There's some further dialogue we need to have, David, with Transport for Wales about the contribution that they are going to make into the development of the regional transport plan. We will be doing that over the coming weeks, and we can be a little clearer then, I think, about what the impact and implications would be for the CJC. So we may need to be going back to the Minister again, depending on the outcome of that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, anything further on this item? As I said, it's for noting at the present time, but we will take the actions we've discussed and make sure they're agended for the next meeting, and obviously we'll update on any further discussions with ministers. Okay, if that's all in order, we'll move on then to item 5, which is the presentation from the Health Estate, Howell Dda University Health Board. So I'd like to welcome Lee Davis and Maria Battle from the Health Board, who are going to take us through a presentation. And just as context for members, Karen specifically had discussed the opportunity for both our Health Board partners to come and present their plans to the CJCs, so that we got awareness of what the Health Boards intend to do in terms of contributing to the CJC agendas. So again, very good to have Lee and Maria here. So I don't know who's going to drive this one, guys. I assume one of you's got a presentation ready. So if you want to share your screen and obviously go from there.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you for that, Chair. I've got a set of slides, which I'll take us through pretty quickly, and then I guess we can move on to discussion. And I don't think you've got very long for the agenda item of you, so I won't spend too much time taking you through slides. But just to make sure everyone's got the context. So if I just share my slides. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Okay, so we in Howell Dda have a strategy called A Healthier Mid and West Wales, which was a strategy developed a few years back, which I'll give you a bit of background to shortly. So as a health board, you'll know this obviously well enough. We cover a population of not far off 400,000 people across the 3 counties of West Wales. We've got a very large geographical area to cover, and so our population isn't dissimilar to other health boards in terms of size, but it's spread across a very large rural area, of course, and transport and travel challenges within that, as you'll be aware, and obviously large distances to cover, particularly north to south for our population. And what we don't have is a central large town or city to build our services around. So that's really the kind of key point in terms of the legacy of the configuration of health services that we've inherited coming into the formation of the Health Board. The Health Board, as I say, has got a configuration of services that really dates back to around the 50s or 60s. We've seen quite a lot of problems and challenges emerging over the last 20 years as a result of that. So we've had some financial challenges going back since the 90s, but then we've got service sustainability and fragility challenges over the last 20 years or so, and that's meant that some services have had to cease or centralize into one location, and others we've managed to keep them going, but they've been teetering on the brink in some areas. So that was the backdrop then to the development of the Healthier Mid and West Wales strategy, which was intended to really set that longer term direction for sustainable health services for Mid and West Wales. we've got a couple of significant challenges. One of them is around our estate, so Glangwili, Withybush in particular, but actually across all of our hospitals, 40% of our estate is over 50 years old, so we've got significant challenges there, and obviously need for investment in some of these facilities, whatever we do in terms of configuration of services and future models. And then the other challenge we've got is around workforce and the sustainability of the model that we've been delivering. So we've increasingly seen, obviously, ageing population, increased demands for the population, and the older model of care, if you like, which is patients coming into hospital, being treated and being sent home again after quite long stays in hospital is no longer really fit for the modern demands and modern pressures. So what we set out in the strategy instead was much more shift towards keeping people well, prevention, self-care, and so on. And as we see an aging population, much lower proportions of ill health being managed in acute settings. To enable that strategy, we identified there was a need to make some improvements to the facilities that we've got. So what we've been developing over the last few years is a network of community facilities. So people who know places like Cardigan and Abereiron, we've developed new integrated facilities there, and we're looking to develop similar across all the key towns and population areas within our patch. The other aspect that we were proposing was obviously a change in the way in which Glangwili and Withybush function, and the establishment of a new urgent and plan care hospital in the south of the Healthport area between Narberth and St Clair's, and then some other relatively minor changes to Prince Philip and Bronglais in terms of the service configuration, but investment required in both those sites to make them sustainable for the long term. So there's a series of community infrastructure developments that we're in the process of developing, some of which I've mentioned we've already got up and running, and others that are in the pipeline. So over the course of the next 5 to 7 years, we'll be looking to develop these facilities in these areas, and obviously working with local authorities to get the right service models in place for those towns and localities. And this is just an example of what that could look like, just to give you a flavour of it. So a conversation that's going on at the moment around Fishguard, the early planning of that. But as I say, that's in development, and others will be different. They'll need to be designed to fit their local population needs. But just to give you a sense of the range of services that we could look to provide in those settings. We think there's a huge opportunity here for South West Wales in bringing investment into the area. So West Wales, from a health perspective, we'd say has been under invested in over the last 30, 40 years. This is an opportunity to put that right. There's a significant capital investment associated with the plans I've just set out, which if we can secure that from Welsh Government will obviously bring opportunities to our local communities, both in terms of obviously education, supply chain, town centre developments and training and development and so on. So we're looking, one of our objectives through this is to really leave a lasting legacy as much as we possibly can for our local populations, and to do that, to make sure that we put as much of that investment back into the hands of the local businesses and local populations as we're able to do. I'll just quickly run through where we are with the planned care hospital. So this takes quite a lot of attention in the media around our plans. We're looking at a hospital, something of the order of 500 beds, which is bigger than the current facilities we've got, but a pretty medium-sized hospital by UK standards. To give you some sort of context or benchmark, Morriston's got around 700 beds. And alongside the physical health hospital, we'll also be putting a mental health facility there and a whole range of diagnostics and other support services. What we're very keen to do is look at not just having a off-the-shelf standard hospital design that we drop into the middle of West Wales, more that we look at opportunities to really benefit our local environment, and use what principles of biophilic design, which may be a new concept to you. It certainly was to me when I started this journey. And it's really looking at the opportunities where we can use nature and interaction with nature to support people's rehabilitation and their treatment, actually, as part of the healthcare offering, and equally, of course, support staff and the local population with a building that is not just got a few plants stuck in it, but is much more focused on using good design to bring the environment and the hospital as one, if you like, as opposed to putting a hospital into open a garden around a hospital and so on. Our timelines are pretty demanding, actually, for what we're intending to achieve. So at the moment, we're aiming for the end of 2029 for all these changes to have been made, including the development of the new hospital. That is, although that's 7 years in the future, that is really pushing it for something of this size. And I'm sure there'll be changes and alterations to that timeline as we move through it. But where we're at the moment is we've submitted the programme business case to Welsh Government. We've gone through the Welsh Government processes with that, and we've had feedback from Welsh Government now that they want to work with us further on a clinical piece of work on the model and to support us with the development of a strategic outline case, which would be the next step. We're then also in train with that, progressing the land selection for the new hospital. So we've gone through a very public process of identifying 11 sites. We've shortlisted those sites down to 5. We asked for public nominations to get to that point. We then, those 5 sites in Narberth, 1 in Narberth, 2 in Whitland, 2 in St Clears. We ran 4 work streams to evaluate those sites over the last 6 months, including public representation on the technical site appraisal, and we took that to board meeting in August, which resulted in us narrowing the number of sites down to the 2 in Whitland and 1 of the St Clears site, and we agreed at that point to go to public consultation on these 3 sites before we make any further decisions. So the 3 sites, just to give you a sense, and the zone that we're looking at, we were always looking at an area between Narberth and St Clears, and we've now narrowed down to those 3 sites. A key point, I think, for this committee is the importance of transport. So we, in all our discussions with the public and others, one of the key questions that comes up repeatedly is what is the plan for transport for West Wales and South West Wales, and how is that going to impact on the delivery of services? So people are naturally concerned about when they've got long distances to travel and public transport is patchy in many areas, what could be done over the next 10 years to support that. So I think there's certainly an opportunity here for us to work with yourselves. We've been working with Transport for Wales to look at what that transport offering could be. And then finally, just in terms of next steps, so I've mentioned where we are with the programme business case, and we're in discussions with Welsh Government as we speak on the next steps around that. I've updated you on where we are with the land and the consultation we're expecting to commence in the new year, and all the while we're continuing our planning on the community facilities that I mentioned. They are obviously all part of the programme business case and part of the strategy, but we are progressing those in parallel with the bigger discussions around how we support the development of the programme business case. So just to finalise, then, we've got as I say, an ageing estate. We've got a 50-year-old model, essentially. So the work that was done in 2017, 2018 was really to take a much longer term fundamental review of healthcare and the way in which we deliver healthcare services. That resulted in the strategy, which obviously we're progressing now. More than that, though, more than just health, we obviously see this as an opportunity for West Wales in a much wider sense, with potential long-term benefits for jobs, economy, education, training, and of course the point I made around transport as well. So keen to engage with yourselves on this as it develops, and happy then to just take any questions and discussions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that, Lee. Really useful presentation. I'll open it up if members have any questions at all. Before I do, I'll come to Maria though. Maria, is there anything you wanted to add in terms of what Lee has presented? Hi, Maria. Sorry, you're on mute there. We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you. Okay. Are there any questions or comments for Lee? Darren, yeah, Darren.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously, this is a massive piece of work, and as an authority in Carmarthenshire, obviously we've received a fair few briefing sessions over the past few years on this as it develops. As you mentioned, there are discussions in terms of the site, but we'll stay away from those today, because that's a debate for another place, I suppose. But in terms of the context of the CJC, obviously you mentioned the training element, the role that the health and social care has in the foundational economy, and that's vital for us in West Wales. And of course the transport, which you mentioned as well, it's integral really to the success of any new model. I'm just wondering, you mentioned the timescales there. There's been a bit of slippage, I understand, in terms of where we're at. And clearly the Welsh Government now are engaged, in supporting the Health Board really on that clinical model. I'm just wondering, when would you expect further progress to be reported back then to those affected counties? I'm thinking Carmarthenshire and Pembrokeshire specifically now, so that all members are involved in that discussion. Diolch.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Price. So in terms of where we are on the timelines and next steps, so the strategy was originally developed in 2018, and we submitted the programme business case in February. So to which we only had a response to Welsh Government in September, so that has caused some slippage to the timelines, as you suggest. And the request for us to develop a SOC, which we were initially hoping we would miss that out, that might impact on our timelines as well. So we're just reviewing that as a result of those things. What I would say though is that Welsh Government's commitment to the clinical model review that I talked about, and where our understanding is they're going to support us with the funding of the strategic outline case. They are the first proactive, positive steps that we've had from Welsh Government in respect of the plan. So whilst we're not quite where we'd want to be in terms of having a PBC endorsed, we're encouraged by the fact that they are recognising the case for change, and they're working with us to on those next steps. So that's a positive from our perspective. So we don't know exactly what the timing will be for each of those things yet, but in an ideal world, what we'd be looking to do is to do the clinical review that I mentioned in the spring, and then complete our SOC subject to how much detail Welsh Government want from us in time for next summer, so probably July, which would then align with the conclusion of the consultation I mentioned. So we might be able to bring all of that together, plus additional work on the land selection for the new hospital, so that next summer we'd be able to clearly set out the next steps and timelines from there. But in terms of your general question about engaging with those involved, so as you mentioned, we are out there at the moment engaging with as many people as we possibly can. Maria and I are at Neath Town Council this evening actually, and been to multiple town councils. We're also engaging with the public, and they'll obviously be part of the consultation process as well. So from our perspective, what we're intending to do is make this a very live, ongoing discussion with all stakeholders, anyone who has a stake in it, who has an interest in it, where we're having those conversations, and that includes, for example, construction industries. We had some very useful, positive discussions with them in September. So we're really, I suppose, trying to get out there and have those conversations with as many people as possible, because some of this, we have a sense of what the opportunities might be, but we don't know everything. We're not the experts in all areas. So we're looking to opportunities where we can work with others to really make the most from what will be a significant investment for West Wales.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Aled, next.
Yeah, just a massive thank you, Lee, for that overarching view. It's very, very informative. But I can't let this opportunity pass without actually commending you for some of the exceptional work that you've done with refugees, particularly in Penallyn, and since then as well in Ceredigion. That work has been very, very demanding, and it has been exceptional. And just to inform you that next Sunday, I'll be meeting with some of the refugees in our mountain centre in the Brecon Beacons, and they will come from your area. And I do think you need to be commended, Lee and Maria as well, because we know each other, for the work that has been done there, and whatever else has been doing that's demanding and difficult. You've done that work on top of that. And I think certainly we in the National Park community would value that and the care that you've given the people that we seek to welcome into our midst. So thank you for that one, Lee, and thank you, Maria, once you get your mute off. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I'm sure we'd all associate ourselves with your comments there. Thank you for that. David, next.
Thank you very much. I think everybody knows my views. Certainly Maria certainly does. The people of Pembrokeshire see it as a downgrade of the hospital in Haverfordwest, and it's very difficult to try and promote this new super duper hospital that's going to come if we can't get the staff to do our normal hospital in Haverfordwest and Carmarthen. They're both understaffed. They're both, I think it's 20% down in staffing. You know, how are you going to get the staff to come to a new super duper hospital? And I hope it is going to be built in Pembrokeshire, but it doesn't look that way. And so the further east you go, I think you've got two problems. You've got one of the problem is you seem to be downgrading our hospital before the new one is built. And the second problem is the further east you go, transportation is a difficult thing. And you say about the magic hour and whatever else that you've got to get people to hospital, but there's no way, shape or form you're going to get people from St David's to St Clair's or Carmarthen in 1 hour, especially in the summer with the traffic. The road is closed very often. So all I see is fraught with difficulties. I fully understand what you're trying to do to condense it all into one in the centre, but it's a very difficult thing to try and persuade the people of Pembrokeshire that it's for their benefit. Very, very difficult indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
I wonder if I could. Thank you. Thanks, David. And it is a really challenging situation. And you know, I'm a resident of Pembrokeshire, and I'm fully aware of the views that you've described. As Lee said, we've spent the last few months meeting all the community councils in Pembrokeshire. Obviously, your council. We've been before the scrutiny committee. And I think that the resolution from there was to help support us in relation to transport and planning. Lee and I and Phil have met with Save Withybush campaign in Letterson as well. And basically, you know, I was chair of Cardiff for 8 years and was very privileged to be able now to be chair of Hywel Dda in my own home area. I was shocked at the fragility of the services in the NHS in West Wales, in particular Withybush and Glangwili. And we've almost become habitualised to the amount of vacancies that we have. And as a organisation, we're doing lots of things. We've got the biggest apprenticeships programme in, I'd say, the UK in relation to nurses. We've also brought 100 overseas nurses in this year. we are doing everything we can to advertise, but we know from what's happened in other parts of the UK, by having that critical mass together, then it does increase the attractiveness. So if you're as Lee would have shown in the slides, if you're an EU consultant and you're on call once every 3 weeks, you come together with others, plus training, plus research. It's just so much more attractive. And as you know, David, we do not intend to lessen the services in the other 2 hospitals in advance at all. But some of these services are so fragile that it's only by the massive, incredible dedication and goodwill of the management, of the consultants, of the nurses and everyone else that we are maintaining the services as they are. And it's a daily challenge. And I think the only way out of this is to have this critical mass of a hospital, over and above the fact it's going to be such a wonderful opportunity in relation to the construction industry, the foundational economy, etc., etc. And in relation to the 2 hospitals that are left, they'll still be there, but they will be doing what needs to be done more than anything at the moment, is that rehabilitation, is that convalescence, is that enabling people to leave the hospital so that we can do what we're there to do, which is the more specialist care, and then they be cared for close to home, close to their relatives, etc. And just picking up the A&E issue, if you look at the data, 70% of people who go to A&E are minor injuries. That will still remain in Withybush, with a 24/7 GP-led unit like we have in Llanelli, which was resisted but is really successful and is embraced by the population. And I think there are some people who will never change their minds, and it's frightening. And we understand that, and that's why we're out there all the time, just to, you know, to absorb, to listen, to respond. And key, everyone focuses on that hospital, as Lee said, key at the integrated health and care centres in our local areas across West Wales, so people don't have to travel. I hope that helps, David.
Yeah, I fully understand what you're saying, and you obviously know that I am not sort of criticising the staff in any way, shape or form. They do an absolutely tremendous job, but I believe they should be supported, and what you've said there is they are being supported, and supported to the extent that those services stay there until the new hospital is built.
Yeah.
That's all I ask for.
Absolutely, and that's our intention.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm based in Withybush every week, and I hear the doctors, and I'm with them, and there is worry because sometimes it's out of our control, because of staffing, etc. But there is no intention to downgrade it in advance. But that I can't say some things may fall over, and that might be out of our control. But we're doing everything we can to maintain it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both for that. Di, I'll come to you next.
Thanks. Thanks, Maria. I think you've probably answered quite a few questions that I had that David had raised. But the new sort of format sort of hinges on local care, doesn't it? In preventative and in the first instance. And I'm just sort of mindful that, I mean, the plan, I presume, is to keep GPs as local as possible in those sort of hubs, if you like. But obviously, we're struggling to keep them. They're getting older. Nobody wants to come here. So I'm just wondering, I'm just thinking of Johnston the other day. I think it's had a reprieve, but I mean, that was planning on being shut. So I'm just mindful that if we can't keep those local hubs satisfactorily, manned, this sort of falls, this whole concept sort of falls apart, in my view, or it's going to, you're going to struggle to from the word go. And also, I'm just interested. We haven't been able to get people to go to Withybush. I imagine you probably have a bit of a similar problem in Llangwili. I don't know, but it sounds like it. But have we done any sort of survey work to see, you put a lovely fancy pants new hospital there, wherever, and can we guarantee that we're going to get the right staff? We're going to get the people here there to man it? And is it just transport? Do we need to think about houses and other things as well? And how are we sort of squaring the circle on that? So thanks very much for that.
Thanks, Di, and I'll obviously, bring Lee in as well. It is more than just transport, and it is housing as well, and particularly in Pembrokeshire. So we've just we're bringing in 100 overseas nurses this year, and we found it really difficult to get housing for them in Pembrokeshire. So many are in Carmarthenshire as a result of that. And I think it's really important as this plan progresses, and please God we get the approval, because I do believe it's the turn of West Wales to have this investment. But that's why we need to work together, because we need to look at building affordable housing, or we go back to, you know, having nurses accommodation closer to the new hospital. And we are speaking to Carmarthenshire about that site as well, the future of where Glangwili is at the moment, because there might be some excess land that we could look at housing. So yes, it is about housing. In relation to GPs, you know, we've got such a huge area. We cover a quarter of the landmass of Wales and Hywel Dda, and it's a mixed picture. So you'll have some GP surgeries and some GP hubs who've got people lined up to work there and to be there. And again, I've taken a number of people to those integrated health and care hubs which currently exist in Aberaeron and in Cardigan. And the impact on the morale and the working conditions and the multidisciplinary work is really attractive to staff. So we are doing everything that we can in relation to GP recruitment, fully aware of the ageing population, but it is a mixed picture, and we've got lots of trainees, GPs in surgeries, which are attractive. And as you saw recently with Johnston, where we have stepped in, and we will do everything we can, and we're looking at different models for the future there, so it can go back to the whatever sector, private or community interest company in the future. We'll continue to do that and innovate. But if I could bring Lee in, you may wish to add, Lee.
Yeah, I think you've covered it really, Marie. I suppose, you know, workforce is the challenge, isn't it, for all public sector organisations, whether it's health or social care, particularly. And that goes for both the kind of lower paid banded jobs, but also for the professional areas. And I guess we're not thinking that this strategy, this plan, solves all of that entirely. But it is helpful in trying to deal with that, and it gives us something to coalesce our plans around. And I think that, you know, the lived experience of, say, the GP in Aberaeron, who's been single-handed for ages, and having the new facility there, you know, he describes it as a game changer. He's got other health professionals down the corridor where he can send his patients, and that gives him more resilience as in that setting. It doesn't solve the problem, but it does make a substantial difference. And when we look across Hywel Dda, you know, we showed the picture of Glangwili, but actually a lot of our primary community facilities are dated. They lack space. They lack facilities to bring more multi-professional clinicians into the primary care setting. So we need to provide better facilities to both attract people in, but also to enhance the range of services that we can provide locally. So you're absolutely right, that is integral to the thrust of the strategy. And it's not a problem unique to Hywel Dda and West Wales, but I guess we do feel it perhaps more acutely in some areas than others.
Okay, thank you, folks. Okay, Martin next, please.
Yeah, just briefly, thanks, Chair. Lee, just an offer to follow up, really. You mentioned the biophilic concept in terms of the new hospital. You're probably aware there is a biophilic village scheme being undertaken in Swansea at the moment. And I know they're doing a lot of learning and research in terms of the health benefits of that. So more than happy to pick up the contacts if you haven't got those already and pick that up offline.
Thank you very much. I think Professor Parfitt, yeah, fine. So we've asked him to lead that biophilic working group for us, and he's doing some work, support our teams, but also other teams on that. But actually, there's no end to the opportunities and the kind of areas to explore within that. So we were also in Down to Earth recently as well. There's lots of innovative things going on. So it's a new space for many of us, and it's a lot of exciting opportunities.
Okay, thank you all very much. I think we've had a good debate on that. Lee and Maria, thank you again for the presentation and bringing the item to us. And I think we all found it really, really useful. So thank you very much. Okay, we'll move now on to item 6, which is, thank you, Lee, which is the appointment of advisors, and I'll hand over to Craig to introduce this item, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this is another element of our sort of constitutional setup which we're looking to build on, and you'll be aware from previous meetings that we have the opportunity to have some status where we can bring private sector advisors into the work programme of the corporate joint committees. So the proposal before members today in your report is that we adopt a model which is perhaps very similar ultimately to our city deal arrangements, where we create an advisory board to the South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee that has advisors from the private sector to be able to advise you on the various duties which you're going to be undertaking. So included within your report today are a set of terms of reference of that advisory report, which are included at Appendix 1. And what we will be seeking is approval then to co-opt members in a non-voting advisory capacity to this advisory board. The chair of that advisory board would subsequently be co-opted again in a non-voting capacity to the main corporate joint committee. And you grant delegated authority to the chief executive to undertake a recruitment exercise to appoint additional advisors as we go forward to look at the specific work programmes of the CJC. So all included in your report on page 53, Chair. Happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. And again, as you referenced, I think this is a model that works well in the city deal area. And again, we'll have the opportunity to add additional representatives to cover different sectors as we feel. I think one thing just to say, obviously the delegated authority to the chief executive in collaboration and consultation with the leaders. Yeah, absolutely. So that's perfect. Okay, are there any questions or comments on this item? No, could I ask then leader colleagues if they could indicate their support? Recommendations, as Craig said, on page 53. Okay, thank you very much. That's agreed. Thank you very much, colleagues. On then to item 7, which is the terms of reference for the subcommittees. Just one amendment to this one, just to advise that there's a change to the published recommendations in the report, in that Councillor Darren Price will head up, if approved, the Transport Committee, and Councillor Steve Hunt will head up, if approved, the Planning Subcommittee. So that's the alteration to the published agenda. So I'll hand over to Craig to take us through the report, please.
Yeah, again, thank you very much, Chair. So members will recall that at our reconstitution meeting earlier this year, we created 4 separate subcommittees ultimately to look at the work programme of the Corporate Joint Committee on the basis that we set out that there's one corresponding subcommittee for each of the 4 areas. So what before members today are terms of reference ultimately for those subcommittees, just to establish who will be present, what the role of that committee ultimately will be in the remit that they will function. So from a governance perspective, there's clarity ultimately on what their purpose and role ultimately will be. So based on similar terms of reference and similar voting principles as previous, the Constitution has allowed. So again, just before the committee for final approval today, Chair.
Thank you, Craig. Your recommendations are on page 61 with the amendments that I mentioned earlier. So again, could I ask leader colleagues to indicate their support, please? Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, Tig, when your hand popped up there, was there any comment you wanted to make? We've taken the vote now, but I'm happy to take comment anyway.
So it was just a very technical one. I noticed in the planning committee, it says in attendance, regional directors of the constituent councils. I just wonder whether, because definitely National Park should be on there, it should be very clear that it's constituent councils and National Park authorities. I assume that's what was meant, but whether it actually says, yeah. I don't know, as long as nobody stops them attending, which I assume was never the intention.
No, absolutely not, Tegwin, and I think we can make that clarification. I think that is absolutely the intention, so we will do that. Okay, thank you, colleagues. On then to item 8, which is information and data protection policies. Again, back to Craig for this report.
Thank you, Chair. So again, another governance-related document. The South Wales Corporate Joint Committee is what we call a data controller in its own right. So we have responsibilities in respect of compliance with the Data Protection Act 2018 and other processes in relation to information governance. The proposal ultimately before members today is just to adopt a suite of documents which help us demonstrate our compliance with the Data Protection Act. And you'll notice that one of the other additional obligations on us is that we need to delegate a data protection officer. So that's the person who has responsibility for making sure ensure compliance with the data protection legislation. The proposal before members today is that you nominate myself as monitoring officer as the data protection officer as well. So the recommendations are included on page 79, Chair. Very standard documents, very similar to what most authorities ultimately use, but before the CJC for adoption today.
Okay, thank you very much, Craig. Again, straightforward this one, but happy to take any comments or questions if anybody has them. If not, then again, leader colleagues, I would ask you to show your support for the report. Thank you very much. Again, that's agreed. Okay, moving on then, Welsh language standards next, another interim policy that we need to consider. This is on pages 169 to 208, and I'll bring Karen in on this one, please, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. As members will know from an earlier report, there are a number of public sector duties that are applied to CJCs, as we are meant to be regarded as being within the local government family. One of those duties relates to the Welsh language standards. I've already had a meeting with the Welsh Language Commissioner's representatives, but the process for applying specific standards to the CJC does go through quite a lengthy process. So that'll take its course, and I'll report back in due course as to where we end up with that. But as an interim measure, we've been encouraged to voluntarily embrace the Welsh language standards. So to be pragmatic, what we're suggesting to you is that we adopt the standards that have been applied to Carmarthenshire Council, which we think are workable, given that the CJC's functions are quite limited compared with local authority functions, and really looking for your support for that approach this morning.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Yeah, it seems sensible approach to me. Happy to take questions and comments from colleagues if you have them. If not, again, I'll ask leader colleagues if they could show their support. Thank you very much. That is agreed. And on then to our next, which is the formulation of the Corporate Joint Committee Corporate Plan, pages 209 to 22. And again, back to Karen, please.
Again, thank you, Chair. There are a wider set of public sector duties that apply to corporate joint committees. And if you look at them individually, invariably what they ask you to do is to carry out assessments, put various plans together and prepare annual reports on things. So rather than preparing a series of these documents, what we're proposing in this paper is that we bring all of that together in one single document that sets out what the CJC's objectives are, and we make sure we cover off those public sector duties in quite a straightforward and proportionate way, particularly given that the CJC is in its infancy. I do think, Chair, that this is a subject that probably you're going to return to when you're at the Senedd committee hearing, because when you get into the nature of the statutory duties, they could become quite cumbersome. So I think there is an opportunity for us to go back to Welsh Government and have some further conversations about how we might adopt a slightly different approach to that which is normally applied to public bodies. But in the interim, we have got statutory duties placed upon us, which we'll be audited upon. And I'm comfortable that we can deliver this corporate plan for you in draft by December, taking a very streamlined approach to it, a light touch approach, and hopefully you're comfortable with this as an interim position, pending us having further conversations with the Welsh Government.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. Again, seems a sensible approach. Any comments or questions from colleagues? If not, again, if I could ask leader colleagues to show their support, please. Thank you very much. Again, that's carried. Okay, thank you. On then to our next, which is the Equality Impact Assessment Toolkit on pages 223, the recommendations, but I'll go back to Karen to introduce. Karen.
Thank you, Chair. So members will no doubt be familiar with these kind of approaches. So at the point of decision making, we make sure we're taking into account all the various duties that we have, and we build that into our decision making process, and we can evidence it, which means then that our decisions are hopefully at low risk of legal challenge. So what we're proposing here is, again, rather than having a bespoke integrated impact assessment approach for the CJC, we adopt one of the approaches that member authorities are using, and in this instance we're proposing to use the NPT, integrated impact assessment tool. It is quite an important policy to adopt because it is going to be the principal way that the CJC will demonstrate that it is taken on board and complying with a number of the statutory duties. So hopefully you're happy to support it on that basis this morning, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Karen. Yes, looks a sensible approach again. We've got recommendations on page 223, but I'll go to colleagues for questions or comments. Aled, come to you first, Aled.
Yeah, Karen, it seems a very wise approach, and thank you for that. I'm just wondering, from my background, you know, it's not the compliance that must be paramount now, particularly in the area of race. It's actually achieving more, and I do hope that we will be mindful that there are drivers, particularly in the racial equality plan from the Welsh Government, that we really do need to, in a sense, go beyond compliance. But I'm sure that we do intend to do that, Karen, and I'm fully supportive of what you have in mind.
Thank you for that, Aled. Just to be clear, and apologies if I wasn't clear enough, the earlier report around the corporate plan would be where we would set out some of that more proactive work that we would intend to do, and we would do that through the way in which we express our wellbeing objectives, the actions we're going to take, how we'll embrace the child poverty duties, and so on and so forth. What this report does then is, at the point of individual decisions, actually setting out what we've considered at the point of decision making to make sure that we've covered off all of those various duties that we have, and as I say, really to make sure that we protect the CJC from the risk of legal challenge. So hopefully that gives you some assurances around the point you raised there.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's that continuous test, isn't it, that we are making sure that we are delivering on what we've set out as ambitions and commitments. Okay, so we've got the recommendations on page 223. Again, could I ask leader colleagues to show their support, please? Thank you very much, and that is again agreed. On then to item 12, which is the publication of the Free Ports Prospectus for Wales, pages 269 to 74, and I'll come back to Karen for this one, please.
Apologies, my IT was playing up there. Yeah, so hopefully the report is pretty self-explanatory. There's an opportunity to bid for free port status within Wales. It's a joint prospectus that's been developed between the Welsh Government and the UK Government. And you'll see from the paper that a consortium has been formed between Pembrokeshire Council, Neath Talbot Council, and the two ports of Milford Haven and Port Talbot. The intent being that the bid will develop a free port submission based on opportunities that we believe are available in those two port areas around the offshore wind farm turbine opportunity in the Celtic Sea particularly, but also that wider renewables agenda. So we're asking for this morning is a support in principle for this submission to go into Welsh Government. And, you know, we're very keen, I think, to make sure that we are taking the opportunity to deliver wider benefits across the entire region as well. And I know the leaders particularly have asked for further assurances once the bid's a bit further developed to make sure that any risks around the displacement of any economic activity is highlighted and addressed as part of the bid development submission. We've been very happy to give that assurance. So that's probably all I want to say, Robin. I'd be happy to take questions.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. I think, look, really important that our region does have a free port bid going in, and obviously leaders have discussed, and we are very, very keen to offer our in-principle support for this to begin this process and to make sure that we have a bid that goes forward. As you quite rightly referenced, you know, if we're successful in the free port bids, the hope would be that there would be significant positive impacts on supply chains and businesses across the region, not just in the free port areas, and that is certainly something that we're all keen to see. And obviously, just from a Swansea perspective at the moment, I think this is hugely exciting, given the complementary nature of free ports to what we're working to deliver in terms of the tidal lagoon and the green energy aspirations for Swansea Port itself. So I think really, really good complementary potential as a result of this bid, and let's hope it's successful. So I don't know whether any other colleagues wish to make comments on this item. Yes, Steve.
Yeah, just briefly, Rob, I echo your comments there, and I just want to emphasise the work that everybody has put in, Karen in particular, and her counterpart there in Haverfordwest, but yourself and Darren other leaders, you know, David and so forth. I think it's important that we have a bid, and we're not going to know for a while if any bids are successful. And as I mentioned previously, you know, I think Westminster government are looking for one Freeport in Wales, and there'll also be a bid from North Wales, I'm sure. And we need to do as much as we can to support this, not just at the CJC, but everywhere else. And I know you, with many hats on, Rob, will do that, certainly, you know, through the city deal process and everywhere else. But, and you're quite right, last point I'd make is that it has to support all the region going forward. That is critical as well. And I'm sure when we get to know the complexities of it, and hopefully we are successful, then we'll have more information to perhaps exciting information, hopefully a good news story again, given the where we are in this cost of living crisis and everything else that's going on. So I think it could be a positive bid, and hopefully it's a successful bid. Just a few points from me, Rob. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Darren.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Yeah, just quickly, as I mentioned, happy to agree in principle to the bid going forward. Looking forward, of course, to see the analysis and the detail around any risks, but more importantly, the opportunities really for the region. You know, we've got the regional energy plan. I think we need to recognise that we have great potential, you know, natural resources in the whole of South West Wales. And it's important that we take advantage of that. You know, for far too long, you know, Wales's natural resources have been exploited in many ways, and the wealth has been extracted. Well, this is a chance for us to relook at that model and to ensure that we get job creation and wealth creation within those regions which actually have those natural resources. So more than happy to support the bid in principle, and look forward to seeing the detail really in terms of the risks and the opportunities for the whole region. So diolch yn fawr.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. Absolutely concur with that. So thank you for that. Okay, are there any other comments or questions from colleagues on the Freeport bid? Darren, your hand's come back up. Did you want to come back in? Sorry, no, it's just probably a lag. Okay. All right then, thank you. Again, would ask for leaders to show their support for the report. Okay, thank you. That is unanimously carried. And again, on then to our final formal item for today, which is the Audit Wales, understanding their evolving arrangements. And I'll go over to Chris Moore for this one. Chris.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Yeah, this is just really for information for the CJC to bring them up to speed as to where Audit Wales are in terms of overview, etc., of the CJC. Obviously, the CJC is an evolving process and arrangements, and Audit Wales are reviewing it, and they lay out within this letter really their position in terms of the overall governance, the monitoring of the governance, etc. And they've identified within the letter that they will be doing a piece of work on reviewing the governance this year, and gaining a better understanding of the involvement of the CJC. They also go into then the accounts, which is one of their other statutory responsibilities, and they've clarified their position in terms of 21-22 accounts, which I have reported previously that actually we managed to not process any transactions in respect of the 21-22 accounts when we were actually effectively in shadow form. So they've confirmed that they will be doing no review or audit of that particular year. They've also highlighted their proposal in terms of next year. They've reviewed our budget, and they've identified that the budget, because it's actually below £2.5 million, which is the threshold for small organisations, they will accept an annual return of us next year as a full statement of accounts, which is then again a positive in respect of less administration around that. How the CJC develops in the future will be dependent upon what happens with some of the work streams, what funding comes in, etc., and whether we go over that categorisation in the future years. They've referred to their fees within the document as well, and there will be a fee of £2,000 chargeable for the work that is actually going to be done this year around the governance, and that will develop obviously further then next year as a consequence of the small audit work that will have to be done on the accounts. But so just a bit of an update so that we're all informed of where they are with that, and this is a relatively standard approach that actually is being enacted across Wales at the moment within all the CJCs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. And again, that seems pretty straightforward, but I'll open it up. Any questions or comments to Chris on that item? If not, we've got recommendations on 275. And again, I'd ask leader colleagues to show their support, please. Okay. Thank you very much. That's carried. Lastly, we've got any urgent items or any other business. I've not been notified of any. I don't see any hands up either. So with that, can I just thank you all for your attendance today and declare the meeting closed. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Rob. All the best, everybody. Ta-da.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Talbot.
Thank you. Bye.